I don't think we're done with the Matos conversation, but there's also this. Bob Melvin, and you can go to the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever. If you miss the entire conversation, we'll have it for you again next hour as well. But we asked Bo Mel about letting loose after that game in Arizona last week where he expressed some frustration publicly.
Well, you get to a point where you get frustrated and your emotions come out, and sometimes the team needs to hear stuff. So, it's happened a few times this year. I don't necessarily, tell everybody what's going on behind closed doors all the time, but, it's just everybody gets emotional at times, and it has to come from a place that, isn't choreographed, or, it just has to come true emotion. And sometimes you get a little upset and, you see how your team reacts to it. So it's happened a few times this year, but we've had, discussions as a group, I think, that are healthy. We have hitters meetings every day. We, prepare for games with our pitching group too. So there are a lot of guys around here that have some leadership qualities, and our coaching staff is always at the forefront here.
My favorite part of that response was, yeah, that's just the one that you saw.
Yeah.
That's not the only time that's happened this year.
Yeah, there was another one. There's another one I know of this year.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was the last time he got mad with the media in his little press conference.
How mad did he get?
We called him out before this one. There was one other time this year on the road that he was really upset. Might have been in Miami or Tampa. Miami, I want to say.
Okay.
Where he lost it with the media saying that's unacceptable, blah, blah, blah. We can't do that. That's terrible. And I love the accountability. And where those go, and I have no insight on what happened in this one, but the way those things generally go when a manager's pissed, and I guarantee you, it wasn't the physical errors, because those are part of the game. It was the approach. It was the intensity. It's the attitude. It was the effort. Hey, look, it's a privilege to put this uniform on and to step between the lines in a Major League Baseball game, and you damn well better be ready to play. That's the only thing we control. They could kick our ass 10-0, but if you guys go out there and you play the game the right way and we lose, I got no problem with it. But what I saw tonight, guys not being at the right base, guys not being in the right position, guys swinging at pitches with no plan at all up there in big situations. And I got my pitcher out there who's 22 busting his ass and nobody's helping him at all, and he's on an island. And it's not about the physical things. It's about our approach tonight. It's about the mental side of it. Like, you have to be ready to play baseball. Back to the Felipe line, and I say, we have to work for 2.5 hours a day. Do you know how many people out there watching this game tonight would kill to work for 2.5 hours, that sit in traffic, that dig ditches, that do things that matter in life, that single parents, whatever it is, and we get to play a game for 2.5 hours, and you guys can't show up and give me an effort for 2.5 hours? That's BS. You quit tonight, and that ain't going to happen. And if it happens, you're going to sit next to me. You turn around and leave. Drop the mic. But you can't have too many of those, because then it's just white noise.
Sure. They didn't have enough of them the last 3 years. That ever happened?
No.
Ever?
I think they burnt incense.
Oh.
Then had some hugs. Which is fine if that works. Whatever works.
Mental health.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
And it worked one year.
It did.
What the hell happened that year?
A lot of bad things, apparently, based on the ramifications of everybody thinking they had the cheat codes from that year.
Mm-hmm.
I just had those years. I can't comment on it because I was talking about another team then, and I didn't see. It's just all I know is my son was calling me every night and like, Dad, you won't believe this. They pulled another one out of their ass. Dad, they pulled another one out. They pulled another one out.
Yeah, you were working with Washington.
Every time they put a pinch hitter up there, he hits a home run. I don't know what's going on.
Insane.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. He was going nuts.
The sun would go down and Lamont Wade would get a hit in the 9th inning every single night. Yeah. It was ridiculous. There was a game, I won't even remember which, who was the hero. There was a game in Oakland. They played the A's. And it was just if somebody can remember, fire us a text. Grandy, maybe you remember. I feel like late in the game, the Giants maybe are down by 3, and within a span of 4 batters in the 9th inning,
boom, boom, boom.
Wade and Solano maybe both rocked 2-run homers or something. And it was also at a time in the season where you're like, this is going to happen every day. It's insane.
Guess who else thought that? The guys in the dugout.
Yeah.
And when you get that belief and that feeling,
yes.
That's magic.
Yeah.
What I would say, the counter to that is the game is evolving so quickly. How you played it in 2021 is not even close to how you play it in 2024.
What do you mean by that?
Rule changes.
Okay.
The game's evolving into defense and speed. The ground ball and the low line drive are back in vogue. The stolen base is back. In 2021, it was a shift, and you swing as hard as you can, hit over the fence. We got to hit it over the shift.
And they did.
And then you assemble a team that does that. Now, I think, if you want to win a World Series, in my humble opinion, you have to have athletes everywhere. You have to have guys covering ground in the outfield. You have to have guys covering ground in the infield. You have to have a catcher that can throw because the stolen base is in. And you still have to have pitchers that can pitch. You have to have pitchers that can hold runners on. Okay. And I think that's the thing I think the Giants need to work on the most right now.
Talk to me about this, though, as we go back to Luis Matos. Because, again, if you're just joining us, we did ask Bo Mel about sending Matos down, and here's his answer.
Look, Luis Matos is going to have a long career for us, and I don't know where we'd be without him. For that period of time, he was player of the week. He was as hot as anybody in baseball, and it was huge for us. So he's a part of this team right now, even though he's not here. You got to make some tough decisions sometimes. He slowed down a little bit, obviously. He can get a little swing happy at times. You know, that the key for him is going to be able to shrink the zone, draw some walks, and get good pitches to hit. But he's a terrific talent, and he's going to be a Giant for a long time. You know, it's a little unfair with Slate early on, not getting a ton of at-bats and being, not being healthy and so forth, getting off to a slow start. And then when, Luis has such a big couple weeks, there's some tough decisions need to be made. But Slate's been a Giant here for a while now, knows his role, knows his niche, and starting to get some better at bats. So sometimes it isn't always perfect, and sometimes we understand that what Luis created and what he did was exciting. But again, he's going to be back here at some point in time, and like I said, he's going to be a Giant for a long time.
Okay.
Are you hearing what he said? Are you listening to what he said?
What are you hearing?
He said things that I haven't heard in 3 or 4 years.
Such as?
Slate's been a Giant for a long time.
Okay. True. 7 years.
Matos is going to be a Giant for a long time.
Okay. What are you getting at?
That he knows what it means to be a San Francisco freaking Giant because he was one, because Matt Williams was, because Pat Burrell was. And it's an honor to wear the orange and black. And he knows what it means to wear the orange and black. That he's referring to guys that have been Giants for a long time and are going to be Giants for a long time. You never heard that before. There was never any reference to being a Giant because you have a manager that was a Giant and he knows what it means to be a Giant. And in the past, you didn't. And I know Bruce Bochy was never a Giant, but he knew the history. He embraced the history of what had gone well here and what hadn't gone well here. And then he had a bunch of kids that he taught how to win that were Giants. But to hear the manager use the word Giant twice in a quote about a guy that has been here a long time and knows what it means to be a Giant and one that's going to be a Giant for a long time, to me, there's so much that he said there besides the obvious.
I mean, look, what I also hear, though, is sort of like it's bucking something that I thought was going to happen, which was that I thought Matos' stay in Sacramento was going to be short. It doesn't sound like that here. He's going to be back, quote, at some point. That's not what I thought. And yes, there could be an injury. He could be here tomorrow.
I currently heard as much last night at the ballpark that it might be a minute before he's back.
Okay. So I know that we've been having sort of this conversation in a traditional way. You said earlier, look, there's no point in having him up here if he's not going to play every day. Ramos's emergence and ability to play center field does, I think, put that on hold. Even those of you who are fed up and bored with Yaz and Slater and Conforto, I think that there is some unfairness there. Those guys do provide some value and have resumes as Major League Baseball players. I also think when they do good stuff, for some reason, those guys have struck a chord with fans so that when they do really good stuff, it gets ignored. And when they do bad stuff, my God, we highlight it. Like we are there when Yaz strikes out. We are there when he strikes out. But when he homers twice on a road trip and dives down the right field line for like the 8th time this year to make unbelievable plays, you don't hear a damn thing. When Conforto breaks a 2-2 tie late in a baseball game to start a huge series the night after a win, when he breaks a tie and they win the baseball game, in the 7th or 8th inning, whenever that was, you don't hear a damn peep. Oh, we're bored with Conforto. I wasn't bored with him in Texas. That was huge. So I don't think you can just flick all of these established major leaguers, even if they don't have the average you want, away for Matos. But it wasn't until last night that this new thought sort of developed for me. Will Clark said something recently that is resonating in my head. He said Luis Matos has some of the best hand-eye coordination I've seen in baseball in a while. He can be this generation's Pablo Sandoval, somebody who can hit a bad ball. I don't know what it is about Jorge Soler. That man comes up in important situations with runners on base all the time. And almost never does something good happen. And I don't want to sound that harsh on the guy. He does have some good at-bats. They always seem to come at the wrong time. But the bad at-bats come at the what's supposed to be the right time. And he does not put the ball in play when the ball needs to be put in play. So my idea right now is, and it's not tonight, I understand that, but my idea right now is that the Giants need to be a little bit more open-minded about their DH because Soler is not working out right now.
No.
Why no?
Because you lose him for the whole season if you S-can him right now.
I'm not. What does S-can him mean?
You don't want him as your DH, and you send him to the bench. Now you're never going to get anything out of him.
Not every night.
You have to give him at least until the end of July, August.
Every day?
Yeah.
Why?
Because if he gets hot, he can put the team on his back, and that's what Bob Melvin's betting on. So as frustrating as to watch right now, 200 at-bats out of 600 is what?
A third of the year.
A third of the year. So he's got two-thirds of the year to figure it out. Has he figured it out yet? No. Is it hard to watch right now? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it frustrating for those guys in the dugout? Probably yes. But my theory is once you bench a guy, that's that. Like you've lost him. You've lost the player. You've lost the man.
Why is that?
Because he's your big sign in the offseason. You sign him to a 3-year deal or whatever it is, and now you're just going to bench him?
Matos is the player of the week, and he got sent down. So did you lose him?
That's a panic move, dude.
What do you mean?
If you bench Soler right now, that's a panic move.
No, but answer me. Matos got sent down. Are you, after being player of the week, are you losing him?
Maybe. I've said as much. Well, but he's 22. This Soler's been around the block. Like, he's supposed to be one of the guys. And if you just like forget about him now and bench him now, you ain't ever going to get anything from him.
I'm trying to figure it out, like how we're supposed to balance a guy's sort of mental wellness in this conversation, because sort of based on what I'm hearing, it's like
one guy you're spending a lot of money on, and he's an established guy.
A medium
and the
amount
back
of
of his baseball card, if he gets to the back of his baseball card, is why you paid him. You can't pull the carpet out from him right now. As hard as it is to watch, as frustrating as to watch, that's a fan move. And a baseball move is it's the long haul. It's 6 months. If you want that guy to be a big part of it, and he has to be a big part of it for you to do what you want to do, you can't just give up on him.
Okay, but you wanted Matos to stay.
I did.
I'm trying to figure out who it is that's supposed to go to the bench. Because it feels to me sometimes like
it works itself out through injuries.
People want 11 players to start.
And unruly fans. It works itself out.
Well, but no. So, like, if you want Matos up and you want him to play, who sits?
Well, it was... I mean, I don't know. I don't like to get into this and that and roster moves on the air. My whole take on Matos going to AAA was how it affects a young player in general. On how when you make that decision as an organization that a young player who's a prospect, not just a young player who's a 4A guy, not a Wade Meckler, but when you're talking about, Luis Matos, who was National League Player of the Week, and you're hoping you get National League Player of the Month and maybe National League Player of the Year someday out of him, and he becomes an all-star, that if you keep like tinkering with that fragile psyche that is a young baseball player, you could be affecting the big picture.
I understand that. I guess I'm just trying to figure out exactly how the Giants, based on what has developed, were supposed to attack that. How, like the way that things have gone now, how were they supposed to keep him? Because based on what you're saying right now, if they keep him, that means Conforto goes to the bench. Do you lose him? Or Yaz goes to the bench?
You lost Conforto last year. You lost him last year because you're pinch hitting for him in the 4th inning.
Well, Somebody's got to not play. Somebody has to not play.
So it was a numbers game.
And the way that I've looked at big league baseball with teams trying to make the playoffs is the guy who sits is the one who's not playing well. And right now, that's Soler. So, I'm not suggesting you just tuck him over there on the bench and never see him again. You know what I mean? But, dude.
Well, they're not going to do what they want to do this year without him. So if you do bench him and you do lose him, then you're not going to achieve what you want to. That's your home run guy. That's your guy that's supposed to hit 30. He's got 7 right now. I know. And it's hard to watch. But veteran managers and guys that have been around the game, they gave Chapman a really long leash, and look what he's doing. They gave Yaz a really long leash where you're like, whoa, he looks underwater right now. His swing looks slow, and now he's hitting bombs.
I can't argue with what you're saying. I guess
you're right.
My response would just be, well, then Matos was supposed to go down. If that's how we feel about all the big leaguers and we have to give them longer than a third of the year, then I would argue that the Giants did the right thing by sending Matos down.
Yeah, and my take on that was I wish the kid would have had a chance to work through it.
Yeah.
And that's how you build championship players.
We're sponsored by O'Reilly.